Hi, my name is Frank Schaefer, and I would like to address the Trump administration's pure evil. I watched Donald Trump sitting in St. Peter's Square during the Pope's funeral. At the time that he was in Air Force One flying there, a judge was arrested in her court for having the temerity to demand that court precedents be followed. A 2-year-old American citizen was deported without due process, and another judge asked how this could be. Donald Trump sat with other world leaders, many from democratic countries, in which such atrocities as deporting a 2-year-old citizen of that country and arresting a judge who told the ICE thugs to get out of her courtroom and not try to arrest someone in her court who was there for a completely different matter and respect the judicial process, was arrested. As Trump sat there with other world leaders, some from despotic nations, which he favors, like Saudi Arabia and Russia, a 2-year-old American citizen was deported. If you don't like the words pure evil, what would you choose? Unpatriotic, traitor to our constitutional process? How to describe such events that seem unthinkable before the first 100 days of the Trump second term? Trump, who dallies with the idea of a third term and has lawyers working to try to make that possible. Trump, who has appointed the most incompetent crew of people to the Department of Defense, the FBI, and other significant positions of power, whose only qualifications are their subservient relationship to him. The most incompetent cabinet, the most incompetent heads of departments. Elon Musk, who is having children with many women he hits up on X, impregnates, and then abandons and sues if they don't do what he says. Hesketh at the Department of Defense firing generals, while he himself lives by a standard that would get him court-martialed according to military presidents. Many wives, impregnating different women, drunkenness, sexual assault. How else to describe this crew but evil? Donald Trump sat in St. Peter's Square, where I happened to have been a couple weeks ago, wandering around taking in the magnificence of the historical and religious tradition there. Just a few paces from the Colosseum, where Christians were martyred by despotic Roman emperors very much cast in the mold of Donald Trump, who deported a 2-year-old American citizen that a judge said was done without due process, while another judge was arrested for demanding that her court be respected by the ICE agents. We are at a point in American history now from which there is no return, because even if Donald Trump tomorrow morning was translated to heaven in a fiery chariot, even if his whole cabinet disappeared, even if Elon Musk, who impregnates women he hits up upon and then dumps, hardly sees his children, even if Jeff Bezos, who has bent the knee, even if the tech bros who had fallen in line were all disappeared tomorrow morning, taken to the celestial realm in a fiery chariot, America's reputation as a nation of laws, as a nation of constitutional precedents in which a 2-year-old citizen cannot be deported under any circumstances without any due process whatsoever. The due process, by the way, does not exist that would deport a 2-year-old American citizen. The due process does not exist where a judge is arrested for demanding her court be respected. As our government is deconstructed and all the knowledgeable people with the experience to get you your Social Security payments, to get you your Medicaid care, are ripped out of their jobs in order to replace them with political sycophants who kiss up to Donald Trump. But I just want you to juxtapose in your mind's eye Trump sitting there in St. Peter's Square with other world leaders, and picture the world leaders he favors that are tyrants like himself, while breaking historical ties that have kept the peace in Eastern and Western Europe since the Cold War, with the exception of his friend Vladimir Putin's unparalleled, unprecedented, unprovoked attack by his rapist army. Yes, I use that word. When the Russians marched into Berlin in 1945, they raped every woman they could get their hands on, with the approval of their high command. This tradition has continued in Russia as they raped their way through Ukraine, raped mothers in front of their children while bombing schools, while bombing hospitals, while bombing centers of medical care across the country and power stations so people would freeze in their apartments. Unprovoked attack that the United States tried to arm Ukraine against until Donald Trump came along and changed sides and threw his lot in with the most evil imperial power the world now knows, and that is Russia. That's whose side we are on today, and on the side of people who deport 2-year-olds, as Vladimir Putin would, who poisons and murders and rapes his way across Europe. At this very moment, I'm speaking to you. That's whose side we are now on, with these fools like Hesketh and others, with these fools like Tucker Carlson who have sided with Vladimir Putin's rape of Ukraine, with Donald Trump who sees fit to unleash an extrajudicial process reminiscent of the South American countries that would round up people and drop them from helicopters they didn't like. A judge is arrested. A 2-year-old is deported with no due process whatsoever, according to another federal judge. This has a name. It's not a political name. It is a moral name. It is evil. There is no moral system in the world that supports the arrest of a 2-year-old and their deportation from a country in which they are citizens. There is no Western democracy in which judges are arrested for not bowing the knee to the presidential power. We have a separation of powers that protects you and me no matter who you voted for. It is going away with Donald Trump, this capricious fool who is destroying the world economy, who came into power after Joe Biden and the wealth of the US economy and the towering numbers of the stock market and a free trade system that the whole world supported and envied as they wanted to import and export with the United States. In ruins now because of this crazy fool who thinks we ought to go back to the 1950s. All those jobs are gone anyway. They're going to be computerized robotic systems, taking all of them. The new economy in ruins, as the vibrant economy that we had, the strong dollar that we had that made the products we imported from Taiwan and Japan and China and Vietnam inexpensive in our stores, giving us a luxurious standard of life. All of this has gone away because of this fool. But today I'm not talking about the stupidity of the destruction of what was the most envied economy in the world. I'm talking about this country becoming a pariah in the eyes of civilized nations as we deport a 2-year-old without due process as a judge is arrested, all to feed the ego of this maniac who only demands one thing of people, and that's absolute subservience to him. Evil this man is. Evil his administration is. This is naked evil. This is not politics. This is evil versus good. This is stability versus chaos. That is the fight we are in. And this will end badly for our country. Our reputation for the lifetimes of anybody hearing me now is ruined. We will not be trusted again. Because 70 million Americans elected this evil fool. Did they know how evil he was? Did they understand a 2-year-old would be deported, a US citizen without due process? Did they understand that judges would be arrested in their courtrooms? There's a name for this. It's evil. My name is Frank Schaefer.